Welcome to the Nutrition Science Podcast, where we help you cut through the noise and make informed, science-based decisions about nutrition and your health. Welcome back to the show. Today we are going to be discussing the top 7 nutrients that many Americans are not getting enough of through their diet. We'll talk about what those nutrients are, why they're important, and also some of the top food sources of each of those nutrients. But before we get started, I know some of you may have noticed that we didn't publish a podcast episode last week. That is my fault. I was in the middle of a move. I was moving from outside of the city of Austin, where I was living previously, to closer into the city of Austin. And I was pretty busy with that. And the podcast fell down on the list of priorities for me. And I wasn't able to stay consistent from week to week. Do not expect that to happen again in the future. That's only happened a couple times in the past. But if you are wanting to listen to more podcast episodes, I would highly recommend going into the past episodes and trying to search for episodes that are particularly relevant to your interests. So I know some of you picked up listening maybe a couple of months ago. I've been publishing the podcast for only about 18 months now, but there's plenty of episodes to go back to and listen to that may be specific to your interest, that may benefit you. I know sometimes people reach out to me asking me for episodes. If you just go back and kind of start from the beginning and look at some of the past episodes that seem to be relevant to you, it will be very helpful. And that's a good way to get some episodes if you want to listen to more. So let's go ahead and get into the content for today. We're going to talk about the top 7 nutrients that many Americans are not getting enough of. I'm going to start with number 7, and then I'm going to go down the list, and I'm going to go to number 1, which is the one that is the top one that many people are not eating enough of through their diet. I'm not going to spend too much time on each one because, as those of you who listen to this podcast know, I like to keep the episodes relatively short. I think it's better to learn in that way, to get small snippets of information that you can actually digest and take in and understand. And hopefully this podcast will help you to identify maybe some areas where you may be lacking in terms of nutrients, where you can add some foods in that may help you to plug in some of those micronutrient gaps, which is an important part of overall nutrition. If you haven't heard me talk about this before, when we approach nutrition, meeting our micronutrient needs, that's our needs of vitamins and minerals, is an important aspect of it, and it's often overlooked. Many people follow diets that really don't take this into account at all. And if you're going to be following a strategic approach to nutrition, you want to make sure that you're meeting all of your needs of nutrients because they are important. And we'll discuss why in this episode. So number 7 on the list is going to be vitamin A. And about 42% of the population is not consuming enough vitamin A. And vitamin A is important for immune function. It's also important for reproductive function, for cell growth and differentiation, meaning helping cells to turn into the types of cells that they're supposed to turn into, and also for maintaining vision and protecting against vision loss. So some of these vitamin A compounds, because vitamin A is a group of different types of compounds, these vitamin A compounds help to protect against vision loss. So it's very important that we're getting enough vitamin A. 42% of the population is not getting enough vitamin A, and enough vitamin A is classified as 900 micrograms of what is called retinol equivalents. And they use this term because there's plant sources of vitamin A. They're a little bit different. They're classified as provitamin A nutrients because they can get converted into vitamin A, but their conversion depends on genetics. I don't want to get you too confused on this episode, but the vitamin A is classified as, when we look at the amounts, it's RAE because there's different types of vitamin A and they're trying to figure out how to normalize them, and they're normalizing them based on retinol equivalents. So a lot of information that you probably don't need to know. I'll probably go into another episode. What I want to do is break down probably each nutrient, like having a specific episode on vitamin A, having a specific episode on vitamin C, etc. And I'll go into more detail about all of this stuff on those episodes, but that would be too tedious to discuss on this episode. But vitamin A, 900 micrograms of retinol equivalents is what an average adult man needs, and 700 micrograms is what an average adult woman needs. And like I said, 42% of the population is not getting enough of that. So where can we get that from? So we can get that from liver. If you have one serving of liver, which is 3 ounces, would give you 7 times your daily needs of vitamin A. That actually would take you to the point of being in a danger zone if you were doing that on a regular basis. There's an upper limit of vitamin A consumption as well, and that is beyond that. So you don't want to do that on a daily basis. This has become somewhat of a trend of consuming liver pills or taking liver every single day. You don't want to do that. If you do, you want to take very small amounts because it does have very high amounts of vitamin A, and vitamin A, like other fat soluble vitamins, they build up in our fat cells and they can have negative effects as well due to toxicity. And the vitamin A specifically can lead to liver toxicity, and this can occur if you're taking high doses of supplemental liver or eating a bunch of liver. If you're eating 3 ounces per day, that would actually lead to potentially vitamin A toxicity over time. Another food with a high amount of vitamin A is sweet potatoes. So sweet potatoes has about one serving, which is one whole medium sweet potato, has about 156% of your daily value of vitamin A. So you can meet all of your vitamin A needs with one sweet potato. Now, there's a caveat to that. I mentioned earlier that our conversion of provitamin A to vitamin A depends on genetics. So some people may actually not be able to meet their vitamin A needs unless they have very high amounts of vitamin A from plant-based sources, because the plant-based sources are provitamin A and the animal-based sources are actually the active vitamin A. So the plant-based sources need to be converted in order to be usable for some of the processes that these nutrients are important for. So due to some genetic factors, some people may have trouble meeting their vitamin A needs to strictly plant-based sources. So I mentioned liver, then we have sweet potato. Spinach is another great source of vitamin A, but again, these are these provitamin A compounds. It provides 64% of your daily value of retinol equivalent. So if you are converting these compounds normally, you will get most of your vitamin A needs met with just one serving of spinach, which is 1/2 of a cup boiled. Another great source of vitamin A are carrots. Carrots have 50% of your daily value in one serving, which is 1/2 of a cup raw. Then we have herring, which provides 24% of your daily needs. Then we have milk, which provides 17%. Cantaloupe, cheese, peppers, mangoes, egg all come in between 8 and 15%. So vitamin A comes from orange and yellow plant-based foods particularly, and then also green plant-based foods. And also we get it from liver and herring and dairy, but those are the main sources. So if you're not consuming any of those foods, you're probably not getting enough vitamin A, and this is a reason that almost half of the population is not getting enough vitamin A. So next on the list is vitamin K. So 46% of the population is not consuming enough vitamin K, and vitamin K is important for blood clotting and also for bone health. And the needs for vitamin K are 120 micrograms for men and 90 micrograms for women. And the primary sources of vitamin K include natto, which if you had 3 ounces of natto, you would have 7 times your daily needs of vitamin K. That's similar to how liver is with vitamin A. And then next you have collard greens. You get 400% of your daily needs from collard greens. From turnip greens, 355%. From spinach, 121%. From kale, 94%. You might see a pattern here. Leafy greens are very rich sources of vitamin K. And then we have edamame, soybeans, pumpkin, pomegranate juice, pine nuts, blueberries. Those come in at about 12 to 15%. But the primary sources of vitamin K are leafy green vegetables. The primary sources of vitamin K are leafy green vegetables. And really, if you include one serving of a leafy green vegetable, even if you're doing collard greens every couple of days, you would be easily meeting your vitamin K needs. And 46% of the population is not meeting their vitamin K needs because a lot of people are not eating servings of leafy green vegetables on a regular basis. Next on the list is calcium at 46% as well. So this is number 5. Yeah, I guess it ties for number 6, number 5 and 6, I guess. I don't know how that works. But calcium, 46% of Americans aren't eating enough calcium. Calcium is the most abundant mineral in the body, and that's because it's very important for the structure of our body, our bones and our teeth, and a lot of the rigidity and structure of our body is from calcium. And calcium is also important for blood vessel contraction and dilation, for muscle function, for blood clotting, for nerve transmission. Calcium is just an important nutrient. And the daily needs for calcium are about 1,000 milligrams per day for men and women. We can get about 33% of that from one serving of yogurt. We can also get about 25% of that from a serving of a variety of different types of cheeses. We can also get a decent amount from tofu, so about 20% of your daily needs from tofu. And then there's a lot of other foods that have lower amounts of calcium that aren't significant sources. But dairy or any other calcium fortified foods are typically going to be the primary sources of calcium. And that's the reason why many people aren't getting enough, is because a lot of people aren't including dairy in their diet. And when they're not including some other type of calcium fortified food that can help to give you a significant portion of your calcium needs in one serving. Because what we'll get a small amount from a lot of different foods, and it helps if you just have, let's say, for example, tofu that gives you 30% of your daily needs, or 35% in one serving, then it's easier to make up the rest of that 65%. You're not consistently under. And what I have found in looking at people's nutrient intake with a lot of people, when they don't include any type of dairy in their diet and when they're not including a calcium fortified food in their diet, most people that I've seen are typically going to be eating too little calcium. So that's where we get calcium. Calcium is important, especially if you have bone issues, if you have a history of osteoporosis, family history of osteoporosis. Weight training is more important there, but the calcium is also important. But you want to make sure that you're getting enough of it, and a lot of people aren't. Next on the list is magnesium at 49%. So 49% of the population is not consuming enough magnesium. And magnesium is important for pretty much everything. So it's involved in over 300 processes in the body. It's involved in energy metabolism, blood vessel function, blood pressure regulation, blood sugar control, pretty much everything. Inflammatory responses. So men need about 420 milligrams of magnesium per day. Women need about 320 milligrams of magnesium per day. And the primary sources of magnesium are pumpkin seeds. You'll get about 37% of your daily value from pumpkin seeds. Chia seeds, another great source, 26% of your daily value. Almonds, 19%. Spinach, 19%. Cashews, 18%. Peanuts, 15%. Cereal, 15%. Soy milk, 15%. Black beans, 14%. Edamame, 12%. Peanut butter, 12%. Potato, 10%. So with magnesium, it really does come down to eating a wide variety of plant foods and including several of the foods on this list into your diet on a regular basis. Even then, many people are not eating enough. And I have seen, and I've talked about this on a previous episode where I discussed the top supplements that I often recommend. Magnesium is one of them, because a lot of people are not eating enough magnesium, because it's, as you can tell by this list, it can be difficult to piece all of these together into your diet to make sure that you're meeting your daily needs. And sometimes a supplement can be helpful for some people. Again, I'm going to do a podcast episode specifically on magnesium at some point. I have a long list of episodes that I want to get to and people that I want to interview as well. So be patient, because I can only put out so much content each week. But check out that episode. It is titled The Top Supplements That I Sometimes Recommend. So if you type in supplements, if you go to thenutritionsciencepodcast.com, so if you haven't been there, go to thenutritionsciencepodcast.com, and there's a search bar at the top. And if you type in supplements, you'll find all of the previous podcasts where I've discussed that topic on previous podcasts. So if you're ever looking for a topic, you want to learn more about a topic, you can go to that search at thenutritionsciencepodcast.com. But magnesium comes in at number 4. Number 3 at 56% is vitamin C. I'm actually surprised about this one. But vitamin C is important for immune function. It's also an antioxidant, and it helps to regenerate other antioxidants like vitamin E. It's also involved in protein metabolism and collagen synthesis. So the needs of vitamin C are 75 milligrams per day for women and 90 milligrams per day for men. We can get 100% of our daily value by eating 1/2 cup of red, orange, or yellow sweet peppers. So those little sweet bell peppers, or the larger ones, but the little ones are easy to eat. Just like 2 of those will give you 100% of your daily needs of vitamin C. So I highly recommend incorporating those into your diet, and then also kind of putting them into salads and things like that. But you can also eat them as a snack just to make sure that you're getting your vitamin C needs met. An orange will give you 78% as well, and oranges are delicious. Like, why wouldn't you include oranges in your diet on a regular basis? I eat oranges pretty much every day. That's one of my favorite fruits, and I don't see why you wouldn't incorporate oranges into your diet on a regular basis. Grapefruits are another one. Kiwi is another one, another great one that I would recommend incorporating into your diet on a regular basis. There are many studies that show that eating 2 kiwis per day can alleviate constipation in individuals who are experiencing chronic constipation. And the results of these studies show that these 2 kiwis are almost as good as some medications, or probably better than some medications, and probably have some additional beneficial side effects as well, including helping you to get your vitamin C needs met. So including kiwi fruit in your diet, great idea. Broccoli, another great source of vitamin C, 57% from broccoli. Strawberries, Brussels sprouts, tomato, those are all 35% to 45%. Then you have cantaloupe, 32%, cabbage, 31%, cauliflower, 29%, potato, 19%. How are people not meeting their vitamin C needs? This is what blows my mind. This particular one, the fact that 56% of adults aren't meeting their vitamin C needs, knowing that these are all the sources of vitamin C. Like 56% of people aren't including any of this stuff into their diet. I hope that is not 56% of you all who are listening to this podcast, because it is not that hard to meet your vitamin C needs if you're incorporating plants into your diet. As you can tell, a lot of these nutrients really point to a deficiency in plant foods overall in the general population, which is not surprising. So number 2 is going to be 72% of the population had inadequate intakes of potassium. So potassium is going to be number 2, and potassium helps to regulate fluid balance. And it's really important for normal cellular function, largely because of this regulation of fluid balance. So it works with sodium and helps to bring water into the cell and keep water out of the cell and bring things in and out of the cell. It's very important. So potassium, men need 2,600 milligrams and women need 2,600 milligrams. And the primary sources of potassium, apricots is one of the top ones at 16%. Then we have lentils at 16%, squash 16%, prunes 14%, raisins 14%, potato 13%, kidney beans 13%, orange juice 11%, soybeans 9%, banana 9%, milk 9%, spinach 8%. So what you'll find here, if you look at the sources of potassium, is that most plant foods have a little bit. So if you're eating a diet that includes several servings of plant foods, you'll usually be getting enough potassium, or be getting a decent amount of potassium. If you're not, you're probably not going to be getting enough potassium. So you'll see why myself and others who take a science-based approach to nutrition really emphasize the importance of plant-based foods, because a lot of the nutrients that are important for our body's function come from plant foods. Now, many of them also come from and are concentrated in animal foods, but those aren't the nutrients that are generally lacking in the American diet, because the average person's generally eating enough animal foods and not enough plant foods, and definitely more than enough highly processed foods that are just lacking nutrients overall, because a lot of, like Cheetos, for example, isn't going to have potassium and magnesium. So now we're going to go to number 1 on the list. 74% of Americans are not getting enough vitamin E. And vitamin E is a fat-soluble antioxidant in the body that helps to protect the fats in our body from oxidative damage. So the fats in our body have very important functions. Our brain and our nervous system is made up of various fatty acids, and these fatty acids can get damaged, and that damage can disrupt their function. And vitamin E is an antioxidant molecule that helps to protect against that damage. So I mentioned brain and nervous system. Our cells are also coated in a layer of fat. And the function of our cells, our cell membrane, is dependent on the health of those fatty acids. And damage to those fatty acids, oxidative damage, can disrupt the function of those cells and negatively influence the way those cell membranes work. Also, we hear a lot about cholesterol and lipoprotein. So when we talk about cholesterol, and if you haven't listened to my cholesterol episodes and this stuff doesn't make sense to you, I'd go back and listen to my cholesterol episodes. But our cholesterol is carried throughout our body in lipoproteins, and these lipoproteins can get damaged. And when these lipoproteins get damaged, that's when they can become more atherogenic or more likely to contribute to the development of heart disease. And so we want those lipoproteins we want to protect them from damage as much as possible. And vitamin E is an important nutrient that helps to do that. So adults need 15 milligrams of vitamin E per day. And we can get 100% of our daily needs from wheat germ oil. But who is eating wheat germ oil? Pretty much nobody. Then we have sunflower oil, which gives us 37% of our daily needs. Safflower oil, which gives us 31%. Hazelnuts, 29%. Peanut butter, 19%. This is one that people are actually eating. Peanuts, 15%. Corn oil, 13%. Spinach, 13%, broccoli 8%. So if you haven't noticed, meeting your vitamin E needs is largely going to be dependent on including nuts and seeds in your diet, or including some of these seed oils that are rich in vitamin E. And I know there's currently a lot of fear mongering around seed oils, and a lot of people are scared to eat some of these seed oils like sunflower oil and safflower oil. I have an episode with my friend Dr. Ids where we discussed this topic in depth. We broke down all of the myths surrounding seed oils, and I'd highly recommend checking that out. If you heard me say seed oils and you had an inflammatory response due to your exposure to certain types of social media content, because that episode will break all of that information down for you and help you to understand whether or not you should be including these oils into your diet. So that's all I have for this episode. Let's do a quick review of those top 7 nutrients again. So number 7, 42% of the US population doesn't consume enough vitamin A. Number 6, 46% doesn't consume enough vitamin K. Number 5, 46% doesn't consume enough calcium. Number 4, 49%, about half of people don't consume enough magnesium. A little more than half of people, 56%, don't consume enough vitamin C. 72% don't consume enough potassium, and 74% don't consume enough vitamin E. I hope this episode was helpful. If you enjoyed it, make sure you share it with someone who you think may benefit from it, or share it to your social media feed and tag me. I really appreciate it when you all do that. And if you haven't left a review for the show and you enjoy the podcast and you've been listening for a bit and you would like to take a few minutes and go leave a review, I would really appreciate you going to do that. I read all the reviews and I appreciate the feedback. So that's all we have for this episode. Hope you all have a great week, and we will talk soon.